Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome. And once again, this is going to be the end of year wrap up, my favorite knives of 2022. Now, I was going to be doing this a slightly different way. I was going to do knife of the year, and I was going to do flipper of the year and EDC of the year. And you could see how confusing that would get, because what I consider to be the best flipper, you might go, well, I only buy front flippers. How come the front flipper wasn't included in that? Or you consider an EDC knife different than I do. So I didn't want to do the categories like I had planned, and believe me, it took forever just to put those together, and I scrapped it all. So what I'm going to be doing is my personal top 10. These are all knives that were introduced and brought out during the year 2022. And, well, of course, it can't encompass the entire industry because I'm only one person. I can only handle so many knives at one time. These are the 10 best that I've had the chance to add to my collection or to review. There is one, maybe two in here that I don't own that I did reviews on that were somebody else's knife. But I'm going to have to include some honorable mentions. Number one, because it's impossible to pick only 10 really great knives throughout the entire year. And also, there's some non-knife EDC items that I think really are worthy of praise and attention. So, if you're ready, I'm ready. We're going to cut it short here because, man, do we have a lot of knives to get to. Let's get into that and roll that beautiful bean footage. Number 10, the TERZUOLA ATCF LITE. Small, lightweight, compact, easy to carry, attractive materials, and honestly, most of all, the attractive price. You still got a great flipper, and you got Bob T's name behind it. The ATCF LITE is exactly, well, what the name implies. It is a lightweight version of Bob Terzuola's incredible ATCF. The reason why it's sitting here is because I think this might be one of the best budget flippers that came out this year. It's slim, it's super easy to carry, it's got some great materials. Don't forget also that this was a Nitro V bladed knife. They didn't go and put some kind of crazy, ridiculous, unknown steel or steel that you've never heard of. He's actually using Nitro V on these, which, while it's not the most expensive steel, it does give you great stainless properties, and it can take an absolute razor's edge and hold that edge for a good long time. You've got Bob's logo right there on the pivot, and you've got his name obviously right there on the pocket clip. And I think that's about the only thing I wish was different on this knife was the style of pocket clip that's on it. I wish it was more like Bob's actual ATCF clip. However, it does serve its function wonderfully. It does clip in very, very well. There's a little bit of a hot spot there at the end of the duckbill, but it is a reversible clip for those that are lefties. You could put a lanyard in here. This kind of is the best of all worlds. I wish it was a little bit lighter weight, but to get the price under $100, they had to go with the stainless steel liners instead of titanium. So you've got a handsome look. You've got a fairly lightweight knife, very slim, very useful blade profile. Very, very easy to carry. You've got Bob T's name on it, and it's at $100 or a little bit less in some places or in some cases. So that's why this one made it onto the list. Number 9, the Nightwatch Knives Interloper. Probably one of the most unique, lightweight fixed blades I've ever had. One of the sharpest by far, and handsome design, clean lines, and a really, really great hand rub satin on that blade. This is one I really enjoy carrying. Now, if you're from Kansas City, you know better than anyone, there's not a lot of really good stuff that came out of Kansas City. especially the barbecue. I don't know why you guys think it's all that great. Go on down to Texas, see what real barbecue's like. Go back up there and you won't like that sweet shit. I'm just kidding. If you're from Kansas City, I'm just playing with you. All right. This is going to be the only fixed blade on this entire list, mainly because I've only gotten, I believe, 2 fixed blades for this entire year, and I want to keep this list really limited to this past year. Alex Harrison is doing an absolutely incredible job. While this may be one of his more basic styles of knife, I think that might be the reason why I like it so much. The ergonomics, fantastic in the hand, feels really good. Great edge, great blade profile, very easy to cut with. The tapered tang does make this a little bit more lightweight, easier to carry. Doesn't matter what handle materials you go with. It doesn't have to be some kind of rare vintage rag micarta like I've got here. He does just outstanding work, and his finishing is getting better and better and better with every knife that he makes. Yes, he is a friend, so yes, I am going to be a bit biased, but honestly, if this wasn't a truly fantastic knife, then A, you would have never seen a review pop up on my channel, and B, you certainly wouldn't be seeing it in this list because I had about 20 knives that I wanted to put into this list, so I had to narrow it down to these 10, and it was extraordinarily difficult. So if this made that cut, you know that it is absolutely worth it. It's affordable, it's handsome, and it's a really great size, especially for pocket carry inside of a pocket sheath. This thing is one of the best fixed blades I've ever owned.
Number 8, the Grant Gripper. I got to tell you, for a Wharncliffe design, this is definitely one of the sleekest and one of the sexiest. While I happen to own the silver tone, I did review the black at first, and it was honestly love at first sight.
I tell you, man, Jason Grant is he's got a hell of a winner here. This is, yeah, it's a big knife. It's not an ergonomic wonder like you'll see with some of the knives on this list, but that really isn't what it was supposed to be. This is going to be just a brute of a knife. Everything was meant to have a very straight profile. There's lots of straight edges and a lot of sharp angles, but it's a wonderful knife to carry and a wonderful knife to use. Great action, easy to fidget with. You want to reverse finger flick it, you want to use the flipper tab, you could do all that, and it's fantastic. I love the fact that he brought the gear pattern backspacer up into what ends up being the jimping on the spine of the blade. It really continues the theme of that frag pattern really, really, really well. I love the fuller, I love the aggressive nature and design of it all. And to be honest, this was another surprise for me this year. Another knife that I really wasn't sure if I was going to fall in love with. I thought it was cool. I thought it was worthy of getting in for review. But it was once I got it in my hands that I went, well, shit, there's just like a magical little formula to this knife that I think a lot of people are going to like. Yes, you can front flip it if you want to because of where the notching for that notch for that jimping is. I'm just not going to do it because I'm not very good at it. But for every other method of deployment, this thing is fantastic. And I got to tell you, it looks aggressive, it looks mean, and it's a lot of fun to pull out and show your buddies when you're talking about knives. And after all, yeah, we want a knife that cuts, we want a knife that carries well, but at the end of the day, we still want something that makes us feel good, that feels like this is a cool design, and my buddies will think it's cool when I show it to them. And honestly, this kind of fires on all those cylinders, and that's why it made the list.
Number 7, the PENA Knives Sons of Liberty MULA collaboration. Limited edition, very few were made, sold out nearly instantly. These are going to be hard to come by if you ever get the chance, but if you do not hesitate on this rare little bird.
I think it's pretty easy to see why I picked this one, not only because it is such a great EDC knife with its blade profile, with its blade size, overall size, with its action, but also because it really was a damn cool collaboration with PENA Knives collaborating with Sons of Liberty Gunworks to create this special edition. It was the first Tanto that was being offered in the MULA, which is available in a few different blade profiles with these specialized inlays in the black and titanium, but also that it's a three-way collaboration when you think of it, because they're manufactured by RIKE. So what you've got is the best of everything. You've got a fantastic size, neutral ergonomics, so it's going to fit pretty much everybody's hand. Think of a Sebenza. You know, there's no crazy finger choils or accentuated palm swells or anything. It's just made to fit in a neutral grip. You've got a little bit of a thumb ramp with jimping. And one thing that a lot of people don't notice is the blade does very gently slope down, which when you add in that swedge really gives you kind of a sexier profile than if it was just a straight back. I think overall this is one of the most handsome knives that came out this past year. I love this grind. I think it's just fantastic with this very, very, very skinny hollow grind going to that reinforced tip with the flat grind. The swedge on there really does accentuate all that. And yeah, man, those inlays look cool as shit. So overall, the entire knife, I think, was a winner. There's not a single thing on this entire knife I think that I would change. I've carried it a lot. I've used it plenty. And I think it took me longer to clean off the tape gunk off the edge of this thing just now than it did for me to set up all my my video stuff. So yeah, this is one of those knives that I feel, whether it be this collaboration or another variation, I think that everybody, absolutely everybody that likes a small to medium sized EDC folder should definitely get their hands on a MULA. Like I said in the original review, I absolutely plan to buy more of these in different configurations because it's just that fantastic. So that's my thoughts on the MULA, and that's why it's here on the list.
Number 6, Terrain 365 Invictus ATB. What can you say except for it's a knife that cannot rust, cannot corrode, and holds an edge damn near forever. Pretty easy to see why I picked it. Oh, and it's got glowy stuff too.
I'm going to tell you this right now. If they come out with a new model that attracts me visually, aesthetically every year, you're going to see a knife from Terrain 365 on my list every year. The Invictus ATB is absolutely everything that I want in an EDC knife. You've got, again, like I mentioned on the MULA, you've got these very neutral ergonomics. It fits the hand very well, even though you do have a pretty pronounced finger choil here. It's not forcing your fingers into other areas. So you could have a small hand, you could have a large hand. It doesn't matter. It's going to fit and feel really, really good. You've also got just a very slight convex to the contouring of this frame. And while it does come down to a sharply defined corner right here where it meets up, it's actually nicely softened. So what you've got is a knife that you can hold on to and it won't twist and turn in your hand, but there's no hot spot, there's no harsh edge anywhere on it. What does that mean? It's a useful knife. It's not just cool. It's not just that it has this, and when I say buttery smooth, it really is a truly buttery smooth action. I mean, just, oh, it takes almost no effort whatsoever to get that to close. So you've got a knife that's actually very, very useful. And me having this in OD green tells you all you need to know. If you've watched me for enough years, you know I do not like OD green. It's a color that just doesn't do anything for me in any way. But when I went to finally get my personal Invictus ATB, they didn't have the carbon fiber, which is what I wanted. And all that was left that was available to me was the green. And I went, screw it, I'll take the green. That's how much I had to have this knife. And for me to still have it nearly a year later and with no plans whatsoever to get rid of it, this is an absolute winner. Knowing that this knife is 100% rust proof, cannot rust. No part of this knife can rust or corrode in any conditions whatsoever means it's a very versatile knife that if I'm ever going to go out doing anything outdoorsy, camping or hiking or fishing, yeah, like I'm going to do any of that shit. But if I do, this is the knife that I grab. If I'm going out, I know it's going to be raining like hell all day long. This is the knife that I carry. When I want something that's full-sized, but still extraordinarily lightweight, like a knife that's much, much smaller, this is the knife that I grab. It's just one of those that once you have it, there are going to be days it's hard to justify carrying anything else.
Number 5. The RIKE Knives LAMELLA. Sleek, elegant, slightly futuristic, and out of this world. Man, this is one hell of a Persian-shaped knife, and I can't get enough of it.
Not everything on this list has to be practical or has to even make any sense. It just has to be awesome for some reason. And I truly believe that the RIKE Knives LAMELLA might be one of the sexiest designs ever made. I love Persian-style blades, and this one is done to a wonderful, wonderful pattern. I love also the fact that they crown the spine. Crowning the spine on a Persian, I mean, you just wouldn't think of it. This beautiful organic flow of the entire design, the pocket clip flows with it, the lines that go into the frame flow with it, the milling in the blade, everything, it just flows organically. The fact that it comes off looking like an integral, even though it's not, I'm just going to call it a hooded frame design that allows this portion here to just blend in with the rest of the frame because it looks like it's just working with the milled lines that are already in it, and they've perfectly and cleverly disguised how this knife comes apart. So you have no exposed hardware, no pivot, no screws. There's a blind screwed pocket clip on there as well, beg style, beg ball pocket clip. The only hardware on this entire knife that you can see from the outside is just this one screw that holds these two thumb studs, which also double as blade stops, together on this knife. If you want to learn more about it, in particular how to disassemble it, then you're going to want to check out the main video I did on this thing. Oh, God, yes. Absolutely love it. You can flip it, you can thumb flick it, you can reverse flick it off of the fuller. You can reverse flick it off of the thumb studs. Everything about this feels good and works good. And that action, all it needs is gravity. A little shaky, shaky, and gravity takes over. And it doesn't just slam closed. It's this beautiful hydraulic motion. So you've got a knife that feels every bit as good as it looks when you're playing with it. It's really, really hard for me to overstate how beautiful I think this is and why I think RIKE is absolutely becoming one of the top names in knife making, period.
Now it's time for a few non-bladed mentions. The Edge Industries Titanium Spike. You would not believe how incredibly lightweight this thing is, and the details are just gorgeous.
I did debate with myself if I was going to be including some non-knife honorable mentions, and I think it really is important to do so because not everybody is always on the search for a knife. Sometimes you just want that extra little accessory that makes your life easier, or is just kind of like a cool gadgety type thing. And I believe this spike falls into the latter. This is all titanium. It is a real beauty of machining. I mean, it is so precise, so wonderfully done on all the machining. The way that everything is fitted, like this copper lanyard opening fitted right into it. The anodizing that's been done. I got to tell you, for something that is not a knife, something that may not be an everyday essential for your EDC, just something that you'll grab every now and then, this is friggin' cool. Will it do some damage? Yeah, I mean, you've got a sharpened titanium spike. It's going to do its job. It's going to do whatever you think that you need it to do. I'm not going to lay any rules out there for anybody or get myself into any trouble with YouTube, but it is really, really cool, masterfully machined. And you know what's great? And there's a lot of really cool trinkets out there, a lot of cool non-knife EDC items that are beautifully machined, and you know, whether they be knucks or any various number of things. But they're so wildly priced that you're like, yeah, that's kind of cool, but that's the price of a knife. I'd rather buy another knife. These are so inexpensive that you'll probably end up buying a couple just to have, even if it's just sitting as a display item with your knives to kind of accentuate your collection. No matter what your use is for it, it's so inexpensive that you can easily justify having it.
The Necromaker Stabby.
And here's one that really kind of speaks for itself. If you're in a non-permissive environment, you're going somewhere where you are not allowed to carry your firearm, where bladed items like knives, other weapons, I use little finger quotes, aren't going to be allowed, but you really don't want to leave your personal security at the door. This might be a good way for you to go. These stabbies are exactly as the name implies. They are super stabby. This particular variation has a G10 stabby inside of the body. So I'm not telling you that you can get through metal detectors with this, but there's no metal in this. So it's not like some of the versions that have the sharpened steel rods or even titanium rods. This is just G10 and plastic, and that's it. So this may be a good option for you. And the good thing is, you know what, if you didn't make it through and security does take it on your way in, you didn't spend a lot of money for it. It's easily replaced. He makes a ton of these. You could buy any various different colors. I liked the XL version, the large flat body version. There's some obviously that are based on the standard Sharpie markers, the regular skinny round ones. So you choose what you like. You pick what colors you like. Whatever you think is going to fit in that environment and not stand out is probably going to be the winning combination for you.
VERO Engineering Fulcrum Pry Bar.
Do you need a pry bar? Well, probably not. It may not be an essential item for you, or maybe even for most people, but to actually have one is a good idea, especially one like this. Joseph Vero came up with a great idea with this. You've got a couple of different bits that you can carry. You can buy different Torx bits, screwdriver bits, whatever you want. You pop them out of there, you stick it in the magnetic end there, and you've got an adjustment tool for your knives. But you have what I consider to be a knife saver. You've got that situation where you have to pry open a paint can, where you have to scrape something, where your buddy is asking you, hey man, have you got a knife? I got to scrape this shit off the. No, not handing you a $300, $500, $800, $1,500, $4,000 knife for you to go scraping shit with. It doesn't mean you're afraid to use your knives. You're just not willing to abuse them needlessly when there is a proper tool for the job clipped inside of your pocket. And this titanium frag little tool is the perfect one. This is the full size. There is a mini, doesn't matter which way you go. He gives you extra O-rings to hold in your tools, which I believe I moved that by accident. That really should be sitting up there. But that holds in your drivers, your bits, and there's any WEHA bit will fit in there. So very simple, very easy for you to replace those or get different ones that you want. As you see, they're marked WEHA. Good scraping edge, good prying edge. Love the frag pattern. Each are individually numbered. It's insane. You're buying a tool, man. You're just buying a pry bar, but they're individually numbered because guess what? Yeah, they actually are collectible. As crazy as that sounds, They certainly are. So anyway, if you want a great useful tool that's not a bladed instrument, this is going to be a great way to go.
And back to the countdown. Number 4, the EMPEDC NYMBLE. You knew this had to be on the list. Not only is it a great EDC, but look how wonderfully photogenic it is. Sleek and sexy, a little bit of tough guy frag pattern. This thing is absolutely a must-own in your collection, no matter which size you go with.
All right, as we move on from here, getting into number 4 up to number 1, I think it's important to mention that from this point forward, any of these knives could have been number 1, and they jockeyed back and forth for that position. It was very hard to put these in any kind of order. So while I am putting them in numerical order 4, 3, 2, 1, just know that these are all so amazing in their own ways, and they have some very different things between them, that any one of these can be number 1 for anybody out there looking for specific things. This, my friends, is the EMPEDC NYMBLE, the original regular size NYMBLE. Yes, I love the NYMBLE X. I love the larger size. I think it's great, but there's just something about the original smaller size that absolutely does it for me. It is a fidget monster. Reverse flicking, yes. Regular flipping, yes. I'm not good at this, but front flipping, yes. Thumb flicking, yes. Slow rolling, yeah. It literally does everything. And it's such a fantastic size. It's small, but it doesn't feel too small. It's got a great blade profile. Very little straight area here, stops right about there. All the rest is belly. All the rest is curved. It's wonderful for opening packages, cutting zip ties, getting into small, narrow areas, but it's still got a pretty well reinforced tip. The grinds are great. That small top swedge on there, I think, honestly adds a lot of character. The frag pattern, while it's not as sharply fragged as, say, the Grant Gripper or many others that are out there, a lot of people did complain because it's kind of a smoother finish. I like it. I really like the smoothness of it. It doesn't feel like it's going to be tearing me up or anything. Since I'm not, disemboweling people, and I'm not cutting body parts off in a bathtub when I'm done. I'm not worried about my hands being a little bit wet and having an incredible grip. This is a teeny tiny knife. I'm going to use something a lot larger when I'm butchering a human being. I'm kidding, YouTube, I'm kidding. This is the kind of knife that I don't feel I need to have that degree of purchase on, because I'm carrying it that day as a small EDC, not a work knife. Will it work for that? Absolutely, man. You've got such a great edge on here, such a great profile. But I just love the fidgetability. I love how it feels, and I love the price point. That's another really, really big deal, and another thing that's made it very hard to pick the best of for this year, because the prices have gotten so crazy low that a lot of times it's hard to justify spending more money on other knives. So when it comes down to knives I carry a lot, this is one of my most carried and one of my most favorite all the way around.
Number 3, Avian Knives Atlas. Honestly, this one sets a whole new benchmark for this category of knife. A knife that can be disassembled and reassembled without tools, yet it doesn't look like it's built like that. Look how incredible this thing is.
And here is another one that it was so close to being my number 1 pick for the entire year. And you'll see why it was so difficult when we get to number 1, because there's a similarity between them in the fact that they are groundbreaking in what they do. Now, when I talk about groundbreaking, it's hard to say that exact word, because the Avian Knives Atlas, what it will most be known for is the fact that it is completely toolless for its takedown and reassembly. Now, that is not a new thing. That's not what makes it groundbreaking. What makes it groundbreaking is it doesn't look like a toollessly disassembled knife. It looks like any other frame lock, except when you really start paying attention, you're like, well, I don't see any Torx heads or Phillips heads or anything else on the two pieces of hardware that I'm looking at. So if I ever need to take it apart, how do I do it? That's the absolute genius of this knife. The fact that you can take this apart so easily, and it doesn't look like some cheapo convertible knife that kind of does everything. There's no big giant levers on it or switches or panels that stick out as, wow, that really looks distracting on the overall design. It looks like it's meant to be taken apart like that. This doesn't. And it feels every bit as solid as any other standard frame lock you're ever going to buy. You're just pushing out a couple, you're squeezing together some friction points, pushing out some pins, and that's it. The action is unbelievably smooth. Super fast action, and yes, you can reverse flick it if that's your preference. And the fact that it's a true semi-custom, meaning the parts were machined, and then after the raw machining, everything was done by hand by Seth Taylor in Tennessee, in the United States. Hand fits every component, hand finishes every component, hand grinds every single blade. Does this all by hand, one person. So yes, it is a true semi-custom, which is a step above mid-tech. Mid-tech, these could literally be completely machined and finished by a third party, and then Seth could just simply put the edge on it and maybe tune the lock and call it a mid-tech because his hands did touch it. This is semi-custom because that custom knife maker, who charges a tremendous amount of money for his work, and rightfully so, is doing all of the work except for the basic initial machining. Everything else he's doing by hand. And that's why the AVIAN Knives Atlas is a true favorite of mine. It's a great price. This is a prototype, so this is in MagnaCut. The small batch runs that are being done in RWL 34. Even if you never, ever take your knife apart, you still want one of these because it's sleek, it's futuristic, it's extraordinarily lightweight, it's a unique design, it looks beautiful, and it's got a fantastic cutting ability with that edge. So overall, it was really, really hard for that not to be number one.
Number 2, Brian Brown YEAGER-M. This thing took the world by storm on each of its drops. I am so glad I got my hands on one. Riot did a bang-up job recreating Brian's incredible design.
Oh, did you think this was going to be number one? I guarantee half of you watching this that had seen the original review assumed that the YEAGER-M was going to be my number one pick because I have screamed from the mountaintops about how much I love this knife. Well, I'm sorry, but it is number 2, but that doesn't take away from the fact that I absolutely, in every way, love this knife. From the incredibly beautiful hollow grind to the top swedge, the overall shape of the blade, the completely flat pivot and pivot collar, the feeling of the action, that special ting that you hear after it locks up because of the blade window here, doesn't come across on camera, but in real life, it really sings. Ah. I love the look of it. I love the feel of it. I love how it carries. I love the fact, and there's still 2 inlay versions I desperately want to get my hands on, the Sunset Orange and the Brittany Blue. I feel I have to own them. But I really strongly prefer the all titanium. At one point, I'd even gotten myself the all black version that had the blued pivot collars. And while it looked really, really great, it didn't sing to me quite like this one did. So I flipped that one pretty quickly. This broke in wonderfully. It's got a great action. I prefer the flipper. You can get it in a non-flipper version, so you'll just be flicking it like that. It works great no matter how you deploy it. Just love, absolutely love this thing. And I look forward to seeing all the new things that Brian Brown is going to be coming out with in the future. And I got to tell you, Riot knocked these out of the park. As amazing as his customs are, it's very hard to justify buying any custom. Let's not just make it Brian Brown custom. Any custom that is in the Jaeger price point, okay? So if you're buying a Jaeger custom, figure you're going to spend, let's say $1,000, okay? Depending on the size and the materials, let's just call it $1,000. Any custom knife in that price range, it's very hard to justify after you've held and played with this knife. That's just how good it is. And I'll stand by that every day of the week.
Let's get a few very important honorable mentions out of the way before we get to number 1. The Brown Knives FSD. Now, this is the only one I don't have in my collection. I don't have it in my possession. I borrowed it from a buddy, and I got to tell you, it was instantly, and I do mean instantly, a new favorite. Now he's introduced a mini version of this knife, because this one's pretty gigantic, and I'm considering that an absolute must-own for my collection. I sure as hell hope I can get one in my hands. This thing is everything a custom CNC knife should be. The AMSLER Hurricane Razor 2049. As the name implies, this is a knife that was in Blade Runner 2049, and man, I gotta tell you, it is a sweet little companion.
I know. Damn it, man. Get to number 1. I have to get out a couple of honorable mentions because, again, this list was really, really difficult to compile. And I don't want to leave anything out that I do truly love that you see me carrying a lot on Instagram. I don't want to hear the whole, well, I see you talking about this knife all the time. How come it didn't make your top 10? Listen, top 10 is hard for anybody, let alone somebody that reviews a lot of knives, gets a lot in their hands. I do want to talk about just a couple very, very quickly. One, I've already shown you, and I wish I had it in my hands to talk about it more. I'm going to try to get my hands on a mini as soon as humanly possible. But number 2, the AMSLER Knives Hurricane Razor 2049. I can't tell you how often I reach for one of these, how often it's in my pocket. Because remember, there is a pocket clip on here. And then, yeah, it's a Kydex sheath, but all it is really is it's just a blade cover. That's all it is, because you're carrying this in your pocket. And you could carry this like in your shirt pocket as if you were carrying a pen. But I obviously carry it in my pants pocket. I carry it on the left side. So yeah, I'm carrying it blade forward, but it doesn't matter because it's wrapped up in Kydex. I love this thing. This is the full size or the large. It fits my hand really, really nicely. You can move these rubber O-rings to wherever they work best for you. I'm fine with them right where I have them here. Great for precision cutting. They are every bit as sharp as they look. And I bought the mini because, God, man, how cool is this? I'm a big 80s fanatic. I love retro 80s stuff. And I kind of like this neon splash job that he did on this one. Yeah, it's just Cerakote. It's not particularly expensive. I really like the fact that he did a really cool anodize on the titanium clip and titanium hardware, because remember, these are titanium clips on here. And it's a little bit smaller. It's a little bit harder to kind of use, but I didn't care. It makes it 10 times easier to carry on me. And if I do need to pull it out and, cut open a box or something, it will absolutely do that. I'm just going to pinch grip right there on the rubber O-rings, and then boom, I'm all good to go. Love these things. Super cool. Crazy affordable too. That's the other great thing. You're not like knocking a knife out of contention that you've really wanted in order to get one of these. You're spending so little. This is a great add-on item. If you're looking to give a gift to somebody, these are super cool, and I guarantee they don't have anything that's anything like it.
The Axial Knives Shift. Great color, incredible action, super sharp on both edges. This one really gives Microtech and every other OTF brand a solid run for their money.
And of course, the list of honorable mentions can't be complete unless you put in an out the front, right? I mean, we all love out the fronts. Not everybody is allowed to own one and carry one depending on state laws. And I just moved to a state where it's not legal to carry these, unfortunately. I left Texas where you can carry, literally, yes, you could carry a samurai sword. You can carry a katana on your back, all that kind of shit. But yeah, so I can't legally carry this anymore, which is a bummer. But I'm still going to have it. I still love it. The AXIAL knives shift. Another reason it made it onto this list is they're stupidly inexpensive for an American-made out the front. It's nutty. You'll be 50 to hundreds of dollars less than a comparable Microtech, and I have yet to have this action fail on me. And I've bought a lot of Microtechs. I've bought a lot of Marfione Customs. I've bought a lot of other high-end out the fronts of a lot of different brands. And I've never had one that was 100% fail-proof. This has yet to fail on me. I'm not saying it can't fail. I'm just saying for me, in my experience, as often as I've deployed this, nothing. Looks good, feels good, super affordable, nice edges on there. It's exactly what I wanted at exactly the right price. It's not so cheaply priced that you're like, ooh, man, I feel like I'm really taking a chance on that. That seems kind of sketch. But it's not so expensive that you're like, well, why wouldn't I buy another knife that may be just a little bit fancier or have a bigger name? This is right there where it needs to be.
DIVO knives, STOUT. It's hard not to want to support a fellow YouTube content creator when they decide to design their own knife, but few of them have been doing it lately, and some of them aren't that damn good. This one, yeah, this one's worth every penny and more.
All right, last of the honorable mentions before I get to my number one pick, and that is the DIVO Knives Stout. One of the knives I used a lot during my recent move halfway across the country, cutting open boxes, cutting down boxes after we moved in, and I started cutting down cardboard and shit. This was one of the knives I had left out that I brought with me on the drive portion of the move because I knew we'd get a shit ton of use. And the fact that they're so inexpensive, if I had done something to damage it, it wouldn't be as hard as trying to replace a knife that was 2, 3, 5, or 10 times the price out of my collection. The blade profile is absolutely perfect for just dropping onto that box and slicing it open. Finger drops right there on the spine. There's no hot spots. Everything is crowned nicely. And yeah, of course, it's handsome. It's a good-looking knife. I think that these are just awesome. I was a little bit iffy at first on if I liked, the look of the blade profile, that toucan beak kind of look, but it grew on me really, really quickly. And the comfort, my finger drops right into that forward finger choil, which, by the way, everything there is nicely rounded, and it works for everything that I've wanted it to work for. It's inexpensive. It's got a super awesome, crazy awesome action. Of course, it is lefty friendly because it is a bolster lock, so you're not applying pressure onto that frame lock when you're going to deploy it. Yeah, the wire clip still isn't my favorite, but I got to tell you, it may not be the prettiest clip in the world, but it sure as shit works. The retention's phenomenal, goes in and out of the pocket, super easy. I haven't had to do a damn thing to it to make it work for my lifestyle. It's just been fantastic. So if you're just looking for a handsome knife that will literally do everything that you'll want to have in your pocket all the time, that you might take to the job site, that you might actually use, the DIVO Stout, 100%, absolutely need to have one of these in your collection.
Number 1, the WINTERBLADE Factor. Just take a few moments and stare at it. Look at it, check out the futuristic design, and realize there's so much more to this knife than just the incredible design. What's inside is what counts, and what it does, the way it sounds, everything about this knife makes it truly, in my opinion, the absolute top of the line knife of the year.
Well, I think a lot of you had figured this out already, especially once we got down to number 2 and you realized that the YEAGER-M was not going to be my number 1 choice. Yep, it is the WINTERBLADE Factor. It's everything that 2022 was for the good stuff. Innovative, because you've got, instead of having a detent, you've got magnets right there that hold the blade closed. And then you have another magnet for this switch. So when that blade opens up, it automatically draws it over, locks this in place, and it is a rock solid lock that I cannot make fail for anything. And once you release that lock, there's no friction, none whatsoever. It is completely free floating on those bearings. And the only reason that it closes up the way that it does is because the magnets are drawing it closed. Reverse flicking, absolute dream. If you want to use it as a flipper, you've got this little guy back here, this little flipper bar that works wonderfully for that. Oh, by the way, that's held in with a magnet. Everything about this knife that makes it what it is, he achieved with magnets. It's slim, it's easy to carry, it's got a very, very thin, full flat grind that makes it a great utility knife, which I still look at it as a utility knife, more so than a standard everyday pocket knife. And then that leads us to what he's going to be coming out with next year. And that's right, take a look at that. That is I almost said spring assisted, didn't I? A magnetic assisted opener. Look at that. And the whole point is just to give you a little bit of an easier way to open it. Yes, you can open it all the way just by pulling the lock back, but it's intended to help you just slam that thing open. For those of you that cannot have automatic knives, but you like assisted openers, this is going to be your new favorite. You can still open it just like you do all of your other knives. But the Mirage is the next great thing coming out from Brian. But yes, number 1 for 2022, absolutely no way around it, the WINTERBLADE Factor. I don't think I've carried another knife nearly as often as I have this one. I have formed an instant bond to it. I didn't think that I was going to like it at all before it got here. I'm like, man, it's just too funky. It's flat, but it's tall, and it's got a weird shaped blade, and this thing here, oh man, people are that's gonna flip open, and people are gonna slice themselves open thinking it's there, and they're gonna go to, no, it just doesn't happen. That magnet holds it in place. It ain't going nowhere, man. Oh, and the sound of it. Listen to this. Hold on. I don't know if you can hear that ting at the end, but oh, that clickety-clack ting. It just sings. And I love the fact that it doesn't look like a traditional knife. It doesn't look like anything else in your entire collection. They're hard to get, they're rare, but he's making more and more and more and more and more. And it's such an affordable price. This is another one, no-brainer. You have to have it in your collection. So what do we do after we've picked number 1? I think it's important to get a couple of interesting knives out of the way. They didn't quite make it onto the list, but I think they're absolutely worthy nonetheless.
This one's such a standout, man, I could not leave it off this list. It may not be better than the Factor or a better EDC than the Invictus ATB, but it deserves a spot in your collection because, Jesus, this thing is absolutely insane. 400 thousandths of an inch thick blade. Woo!
I think over the top is an absolutely fitting description for this knife. When a knife can make a Chavez 229 look tiny and skinny by comparison, you have got the ultimate overbuilt knife. 400 thousandths thick Damasteel blade, which, by the way, still has an incredible action, opening and closing. I mean, look at this thing. It's insanity. Beautiful Damasteel blade, unreasonably thick, just like my original PMP Alpha Beast. Damascus clip, beautifully done, nicely finished. Also has the PMP Knives logo in there as well. The bronze anodized backspacer, and a handful, an absolute handful of Damasteel. Now, mine happens to be number 1. I know it says a big number on there. They only made 10 of these. That number, I believe, just references all of the standard bead-blasted titanium frames. There are only 10 of these Damasteel and Damascus versions of the Alpha Beast made. Mine is number 01. Very, very proud and very thankful to be able to have this in my collection. The only reason I can't show you my original Alpha Beast, which was the only existing prototype, which again, I'm very, very proud to own that one as well. I sent that out to be customized, and it's been 4 or 5 months and it's still not done yet. So I'm waiting for that. When that comes in, don't worry, you'll see a big video on it. But I mean, yeah, there had to be a most over-the-top knife, and the PMP Knives Alpha Beast full dress, in my opinion, is absolutely that knife. And yeah, the action is stupidly good. It opens. Oh, what a detent. Now I'm trying to say how easily it opens, and I have done this entire video and my thumb is just killing me. But the action is unrealistically good for such a large ass knife. Again, I'll put it up against the Chavez 229, and you see that it makes. How do you make a Chavez 229 look tiny in any dimension? You do that with the PMP Alpha Beast. It's the only way to do that.
Most underrated custom knife maker. Look at the beauty of the design. Look at the sweeping lines. Look at the perfectly done inlays. And when you see the action, you'll understand why I feel that Anton may be one of the most underrated makers ever.
Since I really built this channel off of custom knives, not on production knives, I felt it was important to call out one very specific custom maker in this video. I try to make videos like this to be accessible to everyone. Knives that are more or less at some point available and don't always break the bank. But I think the most underrated maker, and that's why I'm bringing this out, the most underrated maker out there today is Anton Knives. South African, a lot of people aren't really up on the South Africans for whatever reason. I've made a lot of videos just about South African makers and then individual makers from South Africa. And this knife, the Boudica Angel's Finger, is, I mean, look at this action. It is completely frictionless. It closes with no friction whatsoever. Take a look at these inlays. The black Damascus inlays are completely flat, including the pivot ring, the pivot collar, all these individual pieces. Beautiful pocket clip. I mean, everything is just, this by the way is Zircuti for the pocket clip. Absolutely remarkable. The action is unlike any other knife you're ever going to get your hands on. He even inlays his maker's mark with actual gold. And believe it or not, these are actually affordable. There are versions, very quickly here, get some focus. There are versions that have no inlays, some that only have pivot collars, some that have 1-piece, 2-piece, and 3-piece inlays. And they all vary in their prices. You can get one of these as low as, I think, what was it, $700? Check my original review to see. The action alone is worth owning one of his knives for. Super, super solid detent. Absolutely gorgeous knife in every possible way. I don't care what angle you view it from. It's flat out sexy and it feels great in the hand. This is really a 100% winner. They're affordable because of the fact that South African, the Rand, trades so cheaply against the US dollar that you can actually get one of these for the price of a really high-end production knife. So I think it was really important to bring this out. Most underrated maker, in my opinion, right now. Not talked about nearly enough. He's a really fantastic individual, wonderfully creative, and this knife is an absolute 100% treasure. So in closing, I think it's important to, number one, thank you guys for joining me as always. It's always a great pleasure to come out here and make these videos with you and for you. But what are we most excited about for the upcoming year? You tell me. Type in the comment section below what knives that are brand new that are going to be debuting next year that you're excited about. For me, the WINTERBLADE Grey Walker, I think, is going to be my #1 most excited knife. If you haven't seen it, go to WINTERBLADE Co. At WINTERBLADE Co. on Instagram. See what Brian's working on. It is a dual action automatic it's mind-blowing the way that it works, everything about it, super awesome. And I'll be getting my hands on the very first one that is completed and ready to be shown. I'll be reviewing it here first on my channel. I'm very excited about that. The Null Knives Voodoo, I did do a review on that. You can go back and see it. It's just not out for the public yet. You can't just walk around and go, hey, let me see your Null Knives Voodoo, because nobody has one yet. But that knife, watch the review. I thoroughly just loved everything about it. It is so wicked in its design and it feels so great. It's just an awesome knife. And the EMPEDC Relative. I did do a review on the prototype on that. You can go back and watch that. The Relative is a new clip point style that they're working with, and I think it's cool. It's a great size, same size as the NYMBLE X. It feels a lot like the NYMBLE, but it's not a NYMBLE, it's a Relative. There's some new milling patterns, and the blade shape is cool. The grind is really, really cool. It's got a nice compound grind. So there's a lot of reasons to be excited about it. And by the way, very soon, I'll be making the video whenever it gets here. I told you about my original, the prototype of the PMP knives, that enormous Alpha Beast that I just showed you a couple minutes ago. I sent mine off to Fanatic Edge to make it look just like my Omen V2. And I love my Omen V2 a lot, but I really wanted to do something wild and different with that knife. So we are replicating this look, so I'll have twinsies in my collection. I thought that would be a pretty neat thing. Anyway, thank you guys as always for watching. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for your patience as I've made my move, my transition to a new area. It's taken me a long time to get my studio set up and get my shop set up. I'm still not 100% done with either one. It's been a very exhausting time for me as well, health-wise. So it just hasn't been easy. I haven't been on Instagram as often as usual, but thank you guys for the support as always. I will be bringing awesome new things to my YouTube, so stay tuned for that. And with that, thank you guys for another incredible year. 10 years I've been doing this here on YouTube thanks to you. And I look really, really forward with a great deal of excitement what the next year is going to bring.